make sure it's on. Okay, it's recording. All right, go ahead, whenever you're ready.
Hi, my name is Gene Corse. I'm a proud veteran of the United States Navy. I was a hospital corpsman, or better known as a medic in the Army. I was a E5. I did approximately 5 months of schooling to become a corpsman at Great Lakes, Illinois in 1966. In 1967, after I finished my schooling, I had to do an additional 7 weeks of training for battlefield treatment at the Camp Lejeune in North Carolina. After that, I was stationed back at Great Lakes Naval Hospital. Some of my duties were general ward, pediatrics, and my favorite was working the emergency room, where I really got a lot of firsthand experience treating with accidents, trauma, illnesses, and so forth. It was probably one of the best duties I had. I've been stationed at Great Lakes, Camp Pendleton, California, like I said, Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, South Vietnam, approximately 20 miles southwest of Da Nang.
How long were you in Vietnam?
I was in Vietnam for exactly 13 months.
And what unit did you serve with?
I was with a Combined Action Program. The Combined Action Program is a program very few Americans know. The program was started in 1965 and is disbanded in 1971 as we were drawing down troops in South Vietnam. Combined Action Program consisted basically of approximately 12 to 14 U.S. Marines with one U.S. Navy corpsman, supplemented with approximately 20 to 25 Popular Force militia soldiers. We were assigned to a village in South Vietnam, and we lived in that village. We did not have a barracks. We interacted with the people. Our job there was to protect the village, which from Viet Cong. From the Viet Cong, we also were responsible for medical help and care for the civilians. Our village was Vinh Phuc, which had approximately 3,000 people. Also part of the Combined Action Program was also civic affairs, where we also helped rebuild 4 schools that were bombed out. So we were like the Peace Corps with rifles, as they used to call us. We saw the war a little different than combat units from the Army or Marines, where they might have been out in the field for 3 or 4 days, maybe seeing villagers as they were going through their operations, but we lived in the village. And it was a different prospect. I had a different view of the war than maybe the grunts that were out in the field. It was a great program. I loved it, but it came with a lot of deaths. There were approximately 5,000 Marines and sailors, corpsmen in the Combined Action Program, and we had almost approximately 2,500 people who got killed because we were a small little group, and it was very easy to overrun our positions. So we had a big death toll, but I think we had a big impact in bringing American and Vietnamese relationships a little bit closer.
So did you enlist, or were you drafted?
I enlisted. If I could have enlisted when I was 14 years old, I would have done it. I had wanted to join the Navy ever since I was a little kid. I couldn't wait for high school graduation, and off I went. 2 weeks later, I was at Great Lakes.
So where are you from? Where did you grow up?
I grew up here in the Chicagoland area. I was out in Nebraska for a little time. Then we came back to Illinois, and I'm basically a native of Illinois, basically.
Okay. Did you play any sports? Did you have any hobbies growing up?
In high school, I played junior varsity football, and I was a great handball player, which kind of got replaced with racquetball. I liked baseball. I tried for the varsity baseball, but my God, I was part of the baby boomer generation. There was like hundreds of people trying to fill 30 positions, but I was a good ball player. I did make the Great Lakes baseball team, which I played left field, and really enjoyed that. And I do like I do like boating, and I do like water skiing.
Part of being in the Navy, huh? With the,
I just liked it.
just liked it, yeah. Did you have any like specific idols growing up? Like, did you idolize anybody?
I think my idols were the servicemen and women of World War II, because I used to enjoy watching with my dad Victory at Sea. That used to come on a Friday night. And I would see what conditions these men and women had to endure. And these were the type of people I looked up to. In the neighborhood I grew up were many World War II veterans, and I looked up to them because just seeing what I saw on the Victory at Sea, I knew these people really went through hell.
I can imagine. You have any brothers or sisters?
I got two younger brothers. They both passed away. I was very proud that my brother, my second to the oldest, my brother Ron, served in the U.S. Army. And my brother has a little claim to fame. When Bill Murray and the crew were out at Fort Knox filming the movie Stripes, my brother Ron got in a good conversation with Bill Murray, and he ended up getting a part in the movie Stripes. And he really had a great time. Told me how they did the filming, and he was a truck driver in the Army, and he was the old man. When he went into the boot camp, he was, I believe, 27 or 28.
Oh,
he
wow.
was the old man, but a college grad, and was very proud that he served his country.
Was he officer when he went in because he was a college grad, or did he just go in as?
No, he just became an enlisted man. I kind of asked him why he didn't go into the officers program. He says, "Man, I didn't want to." And I ran across a lot of people with degrees that just was happy to be in the enlisted ranks.
It's understandable. Nobody wants to be a paper pusher.
Who wants it?
Yeah, right. And I know we were talking a little bit before we started this, so I know you said your family had served. You said your father, right?
Oh, yeah. My father served. He was a World War II veteran. My uncle also served. My uncle served in the Army also. He was, I think, if memory, if I can recall, he was on the 6th or 7th wave that hit Normandy. I don't recall the beach that he was on, but 2 weeks after he had landed in France, he got wounded very, very bad. He caught 2 bullets behind his shoulder. He got shot from the back. And I did not know my uncle was shot until just before he passed away. He never told me he was shot. And I didn't realize until I was helping my uncle change his T-shirt, where I saw the 2 entry and I saw the 2 exit wounds. And that's when I finally got the story. But for all those years, he never mentioned once that he got shot. That came to a great shock to me. But I was very proud of both my uncle. And also I had an uncle on my mother's side in Italy who was on the opposite sides with us, but he was with the Italian Navy.
Oh, that's interesting. That must have been
Yes.
interesting conversations. And you said your father and your uncle both served under General Patton.
Patton, yeah.
In the African campaign.
Yes. As my uncle would say, blood and guts. Our blood, his guts. I guess that was a common. But they had respect for the man. He got the job done, and I think without him, World War II might have dragged on a little bit longer. But he got the job done. He wasn't politically correct, but I'm glad he wasn't.
Right, during that time, you can't be with
You
what was
can't
going
be.
on.
Yeah, political correctness sometimes could be a downfall.
Right. So your combat service, your time in Vietnam, was there a moment during your time in combat that you won't ever forget, like something that lives with you that is kind of
Yeah, well, I believe it was either June, July of '69. Our unit got overrun by the Viet Cong. It was a battle that started approximately around 11 o'clock at night, and it didn't end until about 6 o'clock in the next morning. Because of the area we were in, there was a dense population of civilians, and we could not call any artillery. We could not call for Spooky, the gunship. We could not call any of that because of the cluster of civilians. What ended up to be an all-night battle, we ended up with one Marine seriously wounded. We had approximately 67 civilians that we had a medevac on Chinook helicopters, those big helicopters with
I
two
know
blades.
exactly what
Uh, it got down to where I thought it was going to be almost like the Pacific, where you're going to have fixed bayonets. It got that close. But it was hard to pick the targets who the Viet Cong were because they were mingling with the civilians. They were setting off charges. They were shooting and killing people at random. I could not tell you the number of dead. I don't recall, but I do remember 67 because I had to call in the helicopters to get the medevaced out. So that was one really hairy night. We had other nights too because, like I said, we were just a small little unit, and any firefight was always nerve-wracking. And but we had good Marines. We had good Vietnamese troops. They lived in the village, so they had a stake in the game. This is their home. This is where they live. I'm home in 13 months. They're there forever. So they had some action in there, and they were a great unit. And our unit was successful because of these South Vietnamese soldiers. They were militia. They were like a militia. They were either too young or too old to serve in the regular army of Vietnam. But they played an important role, and we took their advice very seriously, and we respected them as fighters. As a lot of Americans, unfortunately, were very prejudiced against them, but we were not. We respected them, and I think a lot of us came home because we listened to them.
Oh, that's crazy. I can't even imagine. I know it's similar in Afghanistan
Yeah.
with the people. Like, you become
Yeah.
friends with them, and you kind of have to trust them. So I understand.
Yeah, I
where you're
mean,
coming
they
from.
would inform us of possible Viet Cong infiltration that evening, possible booby traps in the area. Booby traps was a big problem for us, and suspected Viet Cong that that were operating in the area. So we really relied on the civilians, and I have so much respect for them. But also, when we had to pull out of Vietnam, I knew a lot of those soldiers that we served with were either put to death or put into re-education camps for years and years and years.
Oh, wow.
And that really, to this day, bothers me, the way we pulled up stake. That bothers me.
So after you had left, you never had any contact with those. Did you ever end up getting in touch with them later on in life? Like, did anybody ever, like some of those civilians at all? Was there any chance, or?
Unfortunately, no.
No.
I mean, that was a time where we didn't have Facebook or
Right,
the
yeah.
or the internet. You had to work on snail mail, and a lot of the Vietnamese, some of them used some English. I had some French. When I was in school, we had a lot of French Vietnamese, so I was able to communicate to a certain degree with them. And but the language, when we first got to Vietnam, when I first got there, I had to go to school for 2 weeks in Vietnam to kind of learn some of the language and some of the customs. And as time went by, after about 5-6 months, I was able to pick up the language fairly good, so I could communicate with the people. And but there were always kids in the village that spoke great English. They picked up English 1, 2, 3. So we used them a lot as our interpreters, as you probably did in Afghanistan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Like, for some reason, they're sponges when they're younger.
They pick it
yeah.
up like crazy. Yeah.
Now, I know you just said you kind of answered the next question about did you or any of your fellow soldiers sustain any injuries in combat? And I know you said you probably had a lot. I don't know. I don't want to like speculate, but a lot of turnover because of how many battles you had.
Injuries? I picked up some shrapnel on my face. You can see here, Vito. I never put in for a Purple Heart. And the reason why I never put into the Purple Heart, which maybe I should have, no, it's too late now, but when I worked the wards at Great Lakes, I saw these Marines and sailors and Air Forcemen whose bodies were ripped to shreds. It was a ward where the most critically injured I was assigned to, and the groans of pain and misery will never leave my mind. And to see what war could do to your human body is like you can't imagine unless you're there. And I'm working on these patients here with I'm basically looking at their organs, and these guys were torn to pieces. I had just a little shrapnel. I could not bring myself to get and ask for a Purple Heart as what I had saw in those wards. And I still see that when I go to Hines. And I saw that when I was at medical school at Great Lakes, where people had no jaws, half their skulls were gone, no limbs, some of them were blind. It just, I could not bear myself with just a shrapnel to put in for that. I just couldn't. I just would not feel right. But I had to sign off on some of our members that did get shrapnel, that did puncture the skin. As long as your skin was punctured with shrapnel, a bullet, or even a bullet grazed you, I had to do the paperwork to give them the Purple Heart. And I knew many of these Marines were going to become career Marines, and I knew it would help them in their career. And as for me, I was just going to do my time and go home. So I really wasn't, But I do suggest that anybody does get hurt in combat and you're eligible for it, get it, especially when it comes to VA benefits and so forth.
So did your unit? Did you guys lose a lot of guys? Like I know it's a tough one. I don't want to.
Yeah, we lost. We lost. You have to remember, we were a small unit. We were broken up into two separate units so that we wouldn't get wiped out all at once. But during the time I was there for the 13 months, I would say we probably had maybe about 5 guys that got killed. Some of them transferred to other units, and I got word that they got killed in action. We had some wounded that we had to send back. And the crazy thing is, when I first got to Vietnam, they dropped me off on a Sunday night. I was on a 6x, the truck, and they just threw me on the Highway 1. And I says, well, where's my unit? Where am I supposed to go? They says, I don't know, just keep walking. Somebody will find you. So I kept walking, and then this little kid named Freddie, he was our houseboy who did the laundry, did our errands, and he spoke good English. And the kid knew who I was. He said, are you the new Boxy? I says, yeah, that Boxy's Corman, doctor. I says, yeah. I says, where's the rest of the Americans? She says, follow me. So here I am following this kid down a jungle path, maybe about a block or two walk, and then there's like 3 or 4 Marines sitting around there. And then to the left of them, maybe about 40 yards away, were a cluster of maybe 15, 20 Vietnamese militia force. So when I got there, we started introducing ourselves, and one of the first questions I says to these Marines there, I says, well, how long you been in this unit? They says, well, we just got here. And then a couple other Marines came. So there was about 6 or 7 of us. And what it ended up that we were all new. Nobody was there from the unit that I thought I would be replacing. So we got into conversation with Freddie, with the Vietnamese militiamen, like, where is the unit? And what had happened is probably about a month before we got there, our unit was overrun, and they were either killed or injured, and there was nobody left. So that's how bad a camp unit was, because it's just you.
Wow.
So we were replacements for this unit that got overrun, and that got pretty nerve-wracking. And then that night we had to go on our first ambush, and whammo, we got attacked that night. So it was baptism by fire, and I was scared shitless. I couldn't get deep enough into that foxhole. But it was one of those skirmishes where the Viet Cong was like, harassment. They weren't out for a full-fledged attack, but to let you know, we know who you are, we know where you're at, and which they did. They knew everything about us. So they just let us know that, welcome to Vinh Phuc. So that was my baptism. Pretty scary that first night.
Yeah, I can't imagine that. That's crazy.
Yeah, because you're out in the village. You're not in a compound where you have a ton of people.
Right.
There was 6 or 7 of us that night, and the Vietnamese militia force. That was it. That until we started getting a couple more guys, but we never had any more than 12 or 13, and we were lucky to have that many.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever as far as like anybody get captured in your unit, or would you guys?
Thank God, that was one of my biggest fears about everything we did, and I have a picture to verify what we did, Vito. But anywhere that we went into the village, into the main drag on Highway 1, to get something to eat or get a haircut with the civilians, we had this, the Vietnamese people, they cut our hair, shaved us, A lot of the guys would go to the Mama San's there and have their beef sandwiches, which we found out were dog meat, but they liked it, so they would eat them, and noodles and stuff. But we always went in groups of 2 or 3, just for that purpose. Getting captured was probably a big fear for all of us. Yeah, because we were very, very open, where it would have been easy to capture us. That's why we always went in 2s or 3s, no matter what we did.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So I know you stated, so as a corpsman in Vietnam, so your job was to treat like the Marines then, or can you elaborate a little bit more?
Yeah, I treated the Marines, and I also treated a backup corpsman. His name was Roy Bell, and I have a story about Roy. I don't know if I can say it or not.
Yeah, of course.
Roy Bell was a college grad from California, Hollywood area, LA, Hollywood. His father was vice president of a movie studio there, Hanna-Barbera, Yogi Bear, that Hanna-Barbera.
Yeah, Hanna-Barbera, yeah.
Roy, when he finished college, his father had connections to put Roy into the California National Guard. And Roy didn't want no part of that. He said, I want to join the Marines, and I want to go to Vietnam. So he volunteered for the Marines. He volunteered to go to Vietnam. And he was the guy that could have skated Vietnam and just stayed in sunny California, but no. And everybody loved him. He just had a magnetism about him that just drew you to him. He was just a great person. And I've been trying to contact him for about 50 years, and I've talked to some of my fellow Cap brothers, and we can't find him. But he was one hell of a guy, and I trained him to be my assistant because in case something happened to me, we needed a backup. So I taught him basic first aid. I taught him how to call a medevac in. I taught him how to call artillery in, because I had to do that many a times by myself. Even though I was a corpsman, we were always short-handed. And a lot of times we didn't have a sergeant, and since I was an E5, I would be assisting the corporal, who would be temporary, but he just got out of basically, and he didn't really know what was going on. So I was basically kind of running a Cap unit for a little while until we could get a sergeant. So I taught him all those, because many times we had to call medevacs. We had to call the medevacs to get the wounded out, and I taught him that. Though the Marines had some, they were better map readers than I was. I was okay, but I always had to tell the helicopter pilot, you got to make a left and come about a half a mile. I wasn't all that great, but I always got the job done. But he was a great guy. And also as a corpsman, not only did we had to treat the Marines, but one of my jobs was to take care of the civilian population. There were no doctors. There was only one midwife in the village. She was basically delivering babies. That was her job. The closest thing, if you want to call it a hospital, which it really wasn't, was about 10 miles away, and it was just as primitive as could be. If you had a cut in your arm, they might be able to help you. Anything other than that, forget about it. So basically, I was their doctor, and a couple times a week, I would hold a med camp, and we would go at different places in the village. We never went to the same place twice because we didn't want to get booby-trapped, and we wanted to keep the Viet Cong guessing. And I and Roy would probably treat hundreds of people in one afternoon because there was no medical care. And were we treating the enemy? Sure enough, sure we were. But I'm sure the Viet Cong were coming in there for aid, but you treat everybody that comes in there. We knew from some of the village people that these were Viet Cong, but you know what? I treated them and move on. And also, we had an hour course at corpsman school on delivering a baby, because the instructor said to us, this is a course that this is a procedure you'll probably never do, but I have to give you this course on delivering a baby. Well, I'm kind of glad I listened, because it was getting close to Liberty on a Friday afternoon, and I just wanted to hurry up and get out of there with the class. But for some odd reason, I paid attention to class, because I ended up delivering 2 babies when I was in Vietnam, because the midwife was on the other side of town, and there was nobody else to help with the delivery. So I delivered 2. I wouldn't want to do it again. I didn't want to see my kids being born. Let the doctors do that. 2 was enough for me. It's not a pretty sight. I don't care how they doctor it up on TV.
So was there any point during your time in combat that you felt like you weren't going to make it back? Like, was there, I know you said the one time that,
every firefight.
Every firefight.
Every firefight, did you have to remember, we had to go on 2 patrols a day. We had a day patrol, and we had a night, it was a midnight ambush, where we would set up an ambush and try to catch the Viet Cong coming down, a path or something. So, yeah, every time you went on those, especially on those night ambushes, because it was pitch black out there, and it was just scary as hell. That's all I could say. And I didn't mind the day ambushes, the day patrols too much, because they were basically more search and destroy, because most of your action happened at night. Vietcong like to operate around 11, 12, 1 o'clock. They were night fighters, basically. And being out in the jungle, especially in areas where you're not too familiar, will turn your hair white real quick. But so the night ambushes, because as a corpsman, I had to go on these patrols and I had to go on these night ambushes. And, yeah, we lost some people on the night ambushes. And those were scary. I don't want to do those again.
So, like so the being in the jungle, was there a lot of other, like, obviously dangers in being in the jungle? Snakes.
Snakes. I mean, we had to sleep on the ground. I didn't have a bed to go to. I had a poncho liner, and then I didn't know what snakes were poisonous or not. And then when you're sleeping, also these snakes come across your body, and you just stood still and just wait for it to leave. So I was more worried about snakes, and also you had to worry about booby traps. Trip mines that they had. You had to worry about those. Luckily, we didn't have too much problems with them because the villagers would tell us where these booby traps were set, and then we would call them in to our main unit, and they would bring these specialized units that knew how to disarm these booby traps. Only thing I didn't like is every once in a while we'd find these spider holes, these underground tunnels, and we would have to go in there once in a while. And I did it once; I'll never do it again. I told them I'd rather go to jail. That's why maybe I'm semi-claustrophobic.
So going over some stories, there's some other stories that you would be, is there some other ones that stick out a lot too, like that you would be willing to share, like anything really?
There was a lot of good in Vietnam. I know I've been dwelling on the bad parts, but I want to dwell, there was a lot of good times too. And I think anybody who's been in a war, could it be World War I, II, Korea, Afghanistan, Iraq? There's always good times. And some of the good times we had with the villagers, with the kids, we would throw barbecues for them. And we had hundreds of people come for a crazy little hot dog, but it was a hot dog. And we were able to just have a good time with them and pass out little trinkets, we used to have, the Marine Corps had like a PSYOPs team where we would have a perimeter set up, and we would show movies, newsreels to the villagers, because there was no power. There was no electricity. Everything was done by hand. There was no power at all. And we would do these for the people, and they would really enjoy it. And we enjoyed it too, because, I wanted to see a movie. I never saw a movie except for when the PSYOPs people came out there. And some of the other good things was being invited to the people's homes for dinner, especially during their Tet holiday, where they would put on their best clothes, the nice food, the rice wine. There was a lot of good times. And teaching English to the kids at the school was another joy for me and for many of my fellow Marines. And like I said, one of our greatest thrill was we took 4 bombed out school buildings, because these kids were going to school in one room of the 4 buildings that was somewhat habitable. So we got together with the Vietnamese soldiers, we got together with the villagers, we got together with our high command in the rear, and at our free time, whatever we had, we would go and start rebuilding the school, and the school turned out beautiful. We had press come from and brass come from everywhere to see these schools, and it was a great joy that when I left there, that I did something good. Because when I first got to Vietnam, the chaplain sat us all down and talked to us as a group, and he says, listen, you're going to be here for 13 months. While you're here, do something worthwhile. Don't just count the days. Do something to make your stay in Vietnam means something. And I always kind of remember what the chaplain said. So when I was asked by my commanding officer to become the civic action officer to take charge of this project, I jumped at it, and I glad I was glad that I left something good there. I hope the school is still there. I don't know, but when I left, I saw 4 beautiful school buildings with a Vietnamese flag flying in the courtyard, and I felt great.
That's good. That's a positive, I guess, of war, right?
Yeah. There's always negative and positives, and there was a lot of positives. There's a lot of negatives, but it made that building and helping the civilians with their health care made it all worthwhile. Trust me, I didn't want to go to Vietnam. Nobody did. I mean, yeah, a lot of people wanted to volunteer. I didn't. But when I went and I did my job, and I did what I was trained for and what was expected for me.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So now, like returning from combat, like and being Vietnam, like the era coming back, I don't know if you've experienced it like personally, but the whole like spitting on soldiers when they return to the airport, did that happen to you, or did you experience any hate from the?
No, I do remember only I nothing had but positive when I came back. I had people thanking me. I went to work in a machine shop about a week after I came home from Vietnam, and a lot of these guys were World War II veterans, and there was also a German veteran who served in the German submarine force. I tried to talk to him to try to get a little information, but he would not talk, and I could understand. As I got a little older, I could understand. But a lot of them were World War II veterans, and I have to say I was pretty well received. And I can remember once my uncle walked me to the bus stop. I was going to wait to take the bus to take the train back to Great Lakes, and there were some people across the street taunting me and so forth. And I had to stop my uncle because he was going to go across the street and duke him out. And then my uncle at the time, he had been like in his 50s or something. I said, Eddie, stop, leave him alone, But no, I went down to City Hall to make a copy of my DD-14. I got handshakes from all the people at the county building there, and I had a positive thing. I never had anybody spit on me. Everything I went through when I came back was on a positive note. And as a Vietnam veteran, I know there was a lot of crazies out there, but I tried to uphold my end that not all Vietnam vets are crazy or dinky now, that, we're not all drug addicts. We want to raise a family, we want to coach a baseball team, we just want to get back into society. But don't judge a couple of bad apples, don't judge us all. Because there was that time in the 70s there, a lot of Vietnam veterans were spaced out on drugs. I can understand it too.
A lot of it probably had to do with PTSD, and it was very new to everybody, and nobody understood it really. And
no, nobody understood that. I told you, when I came back from Vietnam, I had some anger issues, and my wife was saying, "Well, what's wrong with you? Why are you acting like this?" I really didn't know. I didn't know, but I think there was something back in my head that was from Vietnam that was probably taking over, but I didn't realize at that time. I didn't know anything about post-traumatic stress. There was nothing was talked about like that. I didn't have a drinking problem. I never had a drug problem. Like I said, I just wanted to get back into society, and because when I left Vietnam, my son was only 3 months old when I left. When I came home, he was like 17 months old, 18 months old. So I had a lot of catch up to do, but whatever it was, it kind of as the years went by, I got a little bit better. I got much better. But had there been some counseling or something like that, I would have taken it. I know my grandson's been on 3 deployments, and every time they come back, they go through a long session of debriefing. Whatever you guys go through. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm glad for that. So I think the Vietnam veterans opened the doors to a lot of improvements to our fellow vets that are serving right now when they come back from a combat situation. They've learned a lot from Vietnam vets. So that's a positive that you guys are now getting the help that we didn't get, but it took stages
Years. Right.
to kind of realize what the heck was going on with us. You know?
Yeah,
So,
no, definitely, and
Yeah.
that's you're right, exactly that. The
Yeah.
Vietnam veterans opened the door for all
yeah,
of us.
opened a lot of doors, and as a member of the American Legion, Vietnam Veterans American VFW, whenever I see a new member, especially one of our members who served Afghan, Iraq, or some of our members are serving at Camp Gitmo in Guantanamo Bay right now. I always come over there and welcome them to our post, and I want to make them feel welcome, and because we're a brotherhood,
Yes, agreed.
and no matter what era of the service that you've been, you need to respect everybody. And whenever we have a new member in, I do my best to say hello, sit down with them at one of our pancake breakfasts, try to introduce them to a little bit more people. And I just switched over to another VFW closer to my home. It's nice. I went to my first meeting last week. I would have appreciated if the commander would have came over and introduced himself to me. That didn't happen. But I didn't like that, but I'm not going to hold it. As the night went by, we kind of talked and things a little bit more. And one member did come up to introduce himself to me. But I think as a fellow veteran, especially you get a new member, even if he's transferring, go up there and say, hi, my name's Gene Corus, welcome. You got to do that. Make that person feel welcome. And it's part of bonding. And I wish more people would do that. Maybe it's easier for me because I've been in sales most of my life, so it doesn't bother me to come up to people, strangers, and talk to them and shake their hands and say hello. So we're the brotherhood. We need to stick together.
Agreed. And it's kind of like a changing of the guard, like
Yeah.
Vietnam vets handed it down to like the Desert Storm veterans, and then
Right.
the Desert Storm is, so we're just constantly handing it down, so we need to stick together. That's very important.
My father told me every generation will be in the war. I thought it was crazy until I ended up in Vietnam. And he was right. And my father had passed away a couple of years before I entered the service. So I would talk to my dad. I would pray to my dad. I said, listen, Dad, you spent 6 years in combat. Put a good word in for me. I could use it. I think he listened.
Like for that era, so like coming back from Vietnam, like the era going on, the country itself, how would you say like it was as a whole towards the Vietnam
Well, there was
veterans?
a lot of turmoil. It was the 70s. There was a lot of protesting going on. I mean, I remember when I was stationed at Camp Pendleton, there were protesters at the main gate, rear gate, every day. There's just tons of protesters, baby killers in the war, and I just drove by and just, it didn't bother me, I just went back to my apartment with my newly married wife, which had a beautiful apartment. Right across the street was the Pacific Ocean.
Oh, wow.
So that was a great hangout on the weekend with my buddies. So that was a good place. I really loved it there. But there's just a lot of craziness back in the 70s, a lot of political and the war. I was too busy working. I was working 2 jobs, so I didn't really pay too much attention. I think what I saw in the news and a lot of the programs on television at that time were anti-war, and I think Americans were just tired of war. I think that they blamed the Vietnam veterans for the problems. Well, hell, we just enlisted and went where we went, just like you did.
Right.
You went to Afghanistan. You didn't ask to go there, but you went. That was us, when we trained, we went, I'd rather have stayed at Camp Pendleton, and I'm sure you would rather stayed at
Yeah,
whatever
Fort Campbell,
army,
that's where I was at. Yeah.
whatever you wanted to stay. But there was turmoil in the country. We got turmoil right now as we speak.
Yeah, and
Our country is half divided. I'm not happy right now in where the country is going, but I'll give it a little time, and I hope things get better.
And that leads me to my next question of asking you about, like, as a Vietnam veteran, how did the Capitol riot, the storming of the Capitol, how do you feel about that? I know we kind of talked off, but
I have mixed emotions about it. As I was telling Vito, I did not like seeing 5 people die. I didn't like seeing hundreds of people lives ruined. I never would have stormed the Capitol. I've been there a few times. I've actually sat in the house there. I would never have done that. I would, if I were going to protest, I would protest outside. That's our right. I feel bad for the people who did it, but to a certain degree, I can understand where they're coming from. I don't know right now if this election was fair or not. I think there was a lot of skullduggery involved, but I can't prove it. I'm not privy to that. But whatever you come up with, tens of thousands of ballots that go one way in the middle of the night, I have to question what's going on. And my only hope is that at our next election, that these politicians get a fair way to do a fair election where it's fair for everybody. I'm not saying this election was crooked or it was up. I don't know right now, but I just am a little leery of what had happened, especially when I go to bed and my candidate is ahead by 30, 40,000. Then I wake up the next morning and he's down by 50,000, 40,000 votes. Like, what happened? And it seems like all these states where this happened was all in the middle of the night. So, yes, I'm very leery. But Biden's our president. I'll respect him. I mean, I agree with him, but I respect him. He lost his son. I respect him for that. They're a military family, so I respect him for that. I just hope he gets the country together. Right now, it's only a month. I'm not seeing it, and I'm honestly glad that Mr. Trump will not be impeached for the second time. I am a Trump supporter. I'm a Trump supporter because I'm also a business person too, and I've seen the economy and how well the economy has done, and how hard it is to get help. Because we almost had a 0 unemployment rate. Business is booming. People were happy. People are buying homes. People are buying cars. I felt safe buying my car because I knew I'd have a job with overtime. I just retired last year. But I felt good about America. I liked the changes. I liked where we were going. I didn't like Mr. Trump's demeanor at times. I really hated it. But he's not a politician. He's a businessman, and he ran a country as a business, and I respect him for that. And I think we're a better country because of him. And I know there's half the population wants to throw darts at me, but you have to look back where unemployment with black, minorities, Hispanic, women were almost 0. You can't beat that. And what happened the first day with Mr. Biden when he came? He canceled the XL pipeline and threw thousands of people out of work. That's horrible. I want people working. I want to be energy independent. I enjoyed buying gas for under $2 a gallon because I remember paying $4.68, $4.70, $5 a gallon. Not that long ago, ladies and gentlemen.
yeah, I understand what you're saying, definitely. Quick, kind of like a little side question. It's Trump. So with Trump, how did you feel about him not being in Nam, because I believe he was able to, I forgot what it was, but he didn't serve because he was able to get, they called him a draft dodger, basically, is what I'm trying to get at. And how did you feel about that?
Let me
being a
ask you,
Vietnam vet?
Vito, let me throw the table to you. Joe Biden's only a few years older than me. How come Joe didn't serve?
That's a good question.
I can't never get an answer.
Yeah, I don't. That's a good question. I have no
Yeah,
idea.
why didn't Joe Biden serve? Right? I'm going to be 74. He just turned 78. So there's only 4-year difference. The draft was still going on. How did he pass? How did he get past that?
Right.
Okay. Well, how do I feel of him being a draft dodger? Yeah, that doesn't bother me. I wish the hell I could have drafted that. I wish I could have drafted, not get drafted, or I wanted to volunteer. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But no, it didn't bother me. You know, I think like Muhammad Ali didn't serve because he was a Muslim, but yet he contributed to society. God knows he paid a ton of taxes with his bouts and his things. I'm sure you could serve our country in other ways. I mean, World War I, World War II had its conscientious objectors that, like Walt Disney, okay, he was an ambulance driver, didn't believe in killing, didn't carry a rifle, but he did his part. He was an ambulance driver, like a lot of our other famous Americans. And Trump employed a lot of people. He was building buildings, he was employing people, putting food on their table, taxes going to the government. That's another way of serving our country too. We need business people. We can't all be generals. We need business people to invest in building buildings, creating jobs. Look at the Trump Towers downtown.
Right.
Thousands of people see it every week. I'm sure there's a ton of people that work there, that make their living there, and from what I understand, they all love working for Mr. Trump. I haven't heard anything bad about that. He pays his employees well, puts food on their table, a roof over their head. So it doesn't bother me that, he had bone spurs. Well, if you had trouble with your feet, which I did for a while, it's very painful because I've had bone spurs on my heel. You cannot walk. And it's very, very, very painful. And it took me a long time for it to get it under control. So, yeah, I've had them. They're not something you want. And but he served our country in other ways, though, Vito.
I just wanted to ask because since it was your era and he
Doesn't
was
bother me.
the veteran,
No,
a
I
lot of
just want to
people-
know why Joe never served. I cannot get an answer. Nobody on Facebook will give me an answer why Joe never served.
Yeah, I don't have an answer for you either. Yeah.
I have no idea.
And my last question to you: so your time in combat, would you say that it changed you as a person and your outlook on life, going forward? Like,
It made me enjoy life because I saw how fast life could be gone, like you have. Life could be gone in a split second. You're talking to somebody, they're pulverized, they're gone, they're vaporized. That's how fast death could come in combat. And I just kind of learned to enjoy life because I saw how fast life could disappear. I mean, I seen 18, 19-year-old kids that I served with in Vietnam die. I've lived a good long life. I've been, knock on wood, I got all my test results back from Heinz yesterday. Everything is good. I'm thankful for that. I haven't any effects from Agent Orange or anything yet. But it made me appreciate my family, my friends. I remember going home in Vietnam and driving down the Kennedy Expressway, and I was so thankful that I could drive at night and not have to worry about somebody coming out of the shadows and killing me. You kind of take things for granted, you know what I'm saying?
yes, I understand. Yes.
So
definitely.
I was just thankful for the small little things to be able to drive anywhere in the city or drive down the expressway and not have somebody waiting around the bend to ambush me, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I enjoy life, and I hope God keeps me here as long as He can, because even though there's a lot of bad and good, I still like it.
Yeah, don't we all?
I don't. If I do make it to heaven, I hope it's a continuation of this life to a certain degree.
I agree, 100%.
I don't know what it waits, but I hope it's not just floating around on the cloud, because I'll get bored as hell.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But all right, that'll do it. I appreciate it, Gene.
Well,
Thank you for.
I want to say, Vito, I want to say thank you. Really a pleasure talking with you, and I have much more to say, and maybe better ways of putting it. I've been trying to rehearse this all day, even though I was at church this afternoon. I was trying to rehearse, but then when you get here, it's a whole different ball game.
Right.
But it was an honor to serve America. I wish the hell I could do it again, and if I could, I'd do it 100 times better than I did when I was serving, because you get a little older, you get a little more wisdom in you.
Yeah,
And,
I agree.
And it was a lot of fun. I'm very proud that when my son graduated college, he wanted to join the military, but that was during the Jimmy Carter years, and they were downsizing the military, and they were not taking any recruits at all. My son wanted to go so badly, but could not get in. Nobody would take him. There was that period where Carter was downsizing the military drastically. I'm very proud that my grandson, Andrew, will be graduating high school this year. He'll be going to Peru State. He'll be going to Purdue University in Indiana. He had finished all his paperwork for the Air Force ROTC. And after he finishes college, he will be making the Air Force his career. So we carry on another generation serving our country.
We're going to need that too, especially going forward.
Pardon?
We're going to need that going forward because
Yeah.
a lot of the younger generation, younger than me at least, it feels like a little terrifying for the country as a veteran.
I know. I'm very proud of them. I can't wait till I think in 2 years. Then they start going basic drills during the summer and stuff like that. And I hope the hell I live long enough so I can see the what was that, second lieutenant?
Yeah, the butter bar.
Yeah, the butter bar on his shoulders there. So it'd be a proud day, just like it was for my brother. And when I went down to Fort Leonard Wood to see my grandson, who is a Chicago police officer and is also still in the United States Army Reserve as a staff sergeant, and I'm very proud when he became a police officer and when he got his badge, and then we graduated from Fort Leonard Wood.
That's where I graduated from.
Yeah, Lost in the Woods.
Yeah,
there.
Fort Lost in the Woods.
Yeah, so I was very proud to go down there and see those. So it's kind of, I'm glad that the military life is still part of our family. So
for Fort Leonard Wood, is he a MP?
yes, still is an
That makes
MP.
sense. Yeah.
Been to Guantanamo a few times. After the second time, I've seen everything here because you can't leave the base. I've done everything. And he's hoping that his next overseas, he would like to go to Germany for a little while.
Okay.
But right now he's happy with the police department, seen a lot of action. And I'm trying to get him out of the VA because he does have some problem with tinnitus for all
They're
the.
ringing in the ears.
So I'm trying to get them to go down there and start, file a claim, get checked out, and so forth. So I hope he does it when he goes on vacation. But Vito, welcome to the American Legion here in Franklin
Thank you.
Park.
I appreciate it.
That's one heck of a drive from Payless.
Yeah, right.
And we hope to see you as much as you can, or at least come to our functions once in a while. And you got a band of brothers here that if you need any help, all you got to do is ask. Because one thing I learned about being a Legionnaire, people like to be asked, and when you ask them, they'll do it. They'll help you. So don't be afraid to ask. The worst we could say is no.
Right. Yeah, of course. That's. I appreciate it, Gene.
You got it, brother.
And thank you for your service. I appreciate it.
Thank you too. I mean, I look up to you guys because you guys went through hell. And I have a family member who just retired after like 35 years from the Air Force. You know, has been overseas, was a C-130 pilot. His better two members of the family were C-130 pilots. So they've been in your territory, and
Yeah.
I respect them for that. And they were much, much older going there than I was when I went to Vietnam, and I respect them for that. You know, and I thank you and your generation for stepping up to the plate.
We got big shoes to fill. That's for sure.
You know what? There's always going to be big shoes to fill, I think, right? I mean, I don't know what the next war will be, but it's probably not going to be any prettier than the ones we went through.
I think we're getting closer to a nuclear war, if anything.
God, I
That's-
hope not.
Me too, but
If not, I hope not. I hope not, Vito. Yeah, I hope not. All right.
all right. Thank you again, Gene. I appreciate it.